All right, scholars, this is the listen and respond for the week of September 23rd. This is your green and purple listen and respond story for this week. It's called Crazy Hair Day. So let's check out the front cover. I don't know what that is. Maybe he's like a porcupine or a hedgehog or something, or I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. He's some sort of creature, and he's got some wacky hair. Let's see what's on the back. Stanley is excited about Crazy Hair Day at his school until he discovers that he has gotten the date wrong. Oh my goodness, that would be, wow. Okay, let's see how this works out for Stanley. Go ahead and make sure your name is at the top. So I'm gonna write my name. And then today is either the 26th or the 27th, depending on what color you're in. Write the title on this first top line. Remember, we capitalized the first letter of the title. Crazy Hair Day. And now we're ready to get started. All right. As college ready readers, we always use college ready sentences. We always support our ideas with evidence from the text. Preview. Readers always collect clues before they get started reading. Look at the front and back covers of the book before you begin reading or listening. Fill in the chart below. What do you think this book is going to be about? Why do you think this? I think this book will be about blank because blank. And then I want a different reason here. So like some of us are writing the exact same reason on these two questions, and that's not what we're doing here. I want two separate ideas of what you think this book could be about. So like I think this book will be about wearing crazy hair. I think this because I read it on the back. Now, I want you to come up with another thing that this story might be about. So what else could this be about? Could it be about friendship? Could it be about being embarrassed or like handling problems? What do you think this might be about, and what makes you think this? You could say, I see it on the cover and I've had this experience in my own life, or I know that this happens because I've seen it in a movie, or I see it on the cover, the front or the back cover. So those are basically the only options because we haven't read the story yet, right? So once you do that, then we're ready to get started. We're going to be collecting information about the characters in the setting next. So be on the lookout for important characters. Crazy Hair Day. Stanley Birdbaum woke up early. Bald Eagle Elementary School was celebrating Crazy Hair Day, and Stanley couldn't wait. They had celebrated Pajama Day, Twin Day, and 60s Day. Stanley's favorite was Twin Day because he and his best friend, Larry Finchfeather, had worn exactly the same thing. Stanley was ready. He had rubber bands, he had styling gel, and to make his hair perfect, Stanley had 2 cans of Halloween hairspray. Stanley's mother knew just what to do. She wrapped, she dipped, and to make his hair perfect, she sprayed Stanley's hair bright orange and blue. Ta-da, said Stanley. I am a work of art. You are going to be late if you don't hurry, said his mother. So I'm going to go ahead and pause right here. I know some characters, so I'm going to go ahead and write them down. I've got Stanley and his best friend, Larry, and his mom. So Stanley, I know he's excited about the Wacky Hair Day, excited about Crazy Hair Day. What's another trait we could have for him? Go ahead and fill that in on your own. So you can have the one that I wrote down, but then I need you to come up with another one on your own. We haven't really met Larry. We've just talked about him, so we don't really know much about him yet. So we can leave this blank for now, but we need to come back to it once we learn more about Larry. Mom, she's getting him ready. She's spraying his hair. What else? She dipped it. She wrapped it. So what kind of a person does that? A mean person? I think a helpful person does that, right? So we can say that mom is helpful. So I gave you 2 answers. Make sure that you have what I've written down here. And then the rest of these you need to come up with on your own, okay? Let's go ahead and keep reading and see what happens next. Stanley rolled the rubber bands in his hair. He gently tapped the top of his spikes. "This," he said, "is going to be a day I will never forget." "I bet Larry Finchfeather and I will have the craziest hair in the whole school," Stanley thought. As he walked toward the classroom, he heard his teachers talking. "And remember," Mr. Winger said, "Crazy Hair Day is..." Oh no. "Next Friday." Everybody stopped. Everybody stared. Stanley felt sick. Larry Finchfeather said, "Is that a hair do or a hair don't?" Everybody laughed. Stanley ran to the bathroom. So let's go ahead and pause here. I want to go ahead and fill in the setting of the story. It seems like they're at school, right? Because they're having a crazy hair day. How does this setting match what's happening with the characters? The setting matches what is happening with the characters because, so here, what I want you to think about is, if these are students at school and it's taking place in a school, why do you think the author chose to set the story in a school? Would this have made sense if you set it at the beach or at a park or at the movies? And then think about why. I mean, where do you normally have Crazy Hair Day? Do you have it at your house by yourself or do you have it at school? So go ahead and fill this part in. The setting matches what's happening with the characters because why does it match? You tell me right here and write that down. You also have a little bit more information about Larry here, so you can come up here and fill that in. Then we're on to making a prediction. So make a prediction. A prediction is when readers guess what might happen next in the story. What do you think might happen next, and why do you think this? Something I think might happen next is blank. I think this because blank. Another thing I think might happen next is blank. I think this because blank. Again, make sure these two things are different ideas about what might happen next. You can't just say the same thing twice. That's not what I'm asking for here. I need you to come up with something new. So two separate ideas of what might happen next. So I'll remind you what happened when we left off. Stanley just found out that Crazy Hair Day is actually next Friday. His person who he thought is his best friend calls out in front of everybody, "Is that a hair do or a hair don't?" And everybody laughed, which upset Stanley, and he ran to the bathroom. So what is a prediction that you think might happen next? Something I think might happen next is maybe Stanley will have his feelings hurt. And I think this because Larry said something mean and embarrassed Stanley. So you can have what I wrote for that first one if you would like. I said something I think might happen next is Stanley will have his feelings hurt. And I think this because Larry said something mean and embarrassed Stanley. So you can write that one down, but come up with another one that's different. Just fill it in right here. So here you're telling me what you think might happen next and what has happened in the story or in your own life, your own experiences that makes you think that that might be something that happens. So I know for a fact that if somebody that I trusted said something that drew more attention to me when I made a mistake, that would make me feel very embarrassed and sad. It kind of hurts more when it's coming from someone that you trust, right? So that's why I think that him saying something mean and embarrassing would make Stanley have his feelings hurt, because I've had my feelings hurt before too. So you're coming up with something that you think might happen next, and you're telling me what has happened to you or on TV or in the past or in the story that helps you to think that that might be something that happens next to Stanley. Let's see if our predictions are correct. A few minutes later, Stanley heard someone come in. "It's me, Larry Finchfeather." "The Larry Finchfeather who just made fun of me in front of the whole class?" asked Stanley. "I was only teasing," said Larry. "Some days you tease me too much," said Stanley. "Mr. Winger said he wants me to try to be a peacemaker instead of a troublemaker," said Larry. "I'm supposed to bring you back to class." "I'm not going," said Stanley. If you stay in here, you'll miss being the class picture, said Larry. I thought that was next Friday, said Stanley. Crazy Hair Day is next Friday, Larry said. Today is school picture day. Stanley rolled the rubber bands in his hair. He gently tapped the tops of his spikes. This, he said, is going to be a day I will never forget. Larry Finchfeather suggested that Stanley try washing his hair in the sink. It won't help, said Stanley. Halloween hair color lasts for days. Well, it really doesn't matter. It's only your hair, Larry told him. If you don't come out of here by the time math is over, I'm coming to get you. You can't stay in here all day. It was very quiet after Larry Finchfeather left, and Stanley wondered if maybe he could spend all day in the bathroom. He ate his lunch. He drew pictures. He even timed himself to see how fast he could flush all of the toilets. 32.5 seconds, he shouted. A new world record by me, Stanley Birdbaum. There you go. Stanley had counted up to 121, 122, 123 drops of water from a leaky faucet when Larry Finchfeather came back. Beep, time's up, let's go, Larry announced. Picture time. If I'm in it, I'll look like the class weirdo, said Stanley. Remember 60s Day when Mr. Winger had the flu but came in anyway, said Larry. He said the day wouldn't be the same if we weren't all together. You have to come. I'll give you 5 minutes. Larry Finchfeather left, and Stanley Birdbaum thought about 60s Day, when Mr. Winger had taught them all those great old songs. He remembered how on Pajama Day, everyone in his class had worn PJs and slippers. Then Stanley imagined what his class picture would look like without him. Ooh, scholars, this is such a good example of imagining or visualizing. Stanley is visualizing right now. He's making a mind movie and thinking back to when they did 60s Day. He's imagining that he sees his classmates wearing the clothes that they wore on 60s Day. He imagines he sees his teacher playing a guitar because the guitar is associated with the 60s. He also imagines someone wearing a peace sign because people wore peace signs in the 60s a lot. And then for Pajama Day, he's imagining all of his classmates wearing pajamas. So he's making a mind movie. And then he's imagining his teacher with a big robe and slippers because those are both things we wear when we go to bed, right? Also, now he's imagining what the class picture would look like if he wasn't there. He's imagining a big spot empty in the middle and everybody looks like they're missing him and sad that he's not there. That's exactly what you do when you do number 5, visualize. Stanley's visualizing all of these things. So this is a good example. He decided to go back to class. To keep from being nervous, Stanley made up a song, crazy hair, how I wish it wasn't there. Stanley felt someone touch his shoulder. I was just coming to get you, said Larry Finchfeather. What if they laugh at me again, said Stanley. Everything will be fine, Larry whispered. I promise. Stanley stood in front of his class. Everybody stopped. Everybody stared. Stanley rolled the rubber bands in his hair. He gently tapped on the top of his spikes. This, he said, is going to be a day I will never forget. So it looks like all of the other kiddos went ahead and made their hair crazy too so Stanley wouldn't feel left out. That's very kind of them. Let's go ahead and pause right here. That's the end of the story anyway. So now we're on to the visualize part of our assignment. Readers always think about how this story might look in their heads. Readers make a mind movie about what they are reading and see the story in their heads. What do you think this part of the story might look like? I'm imagining the part in the story where blank is happening. I'm imagining it looks like blank. 3 things to describe this are blank, blank, and blank. I think this part looks like this because blank. So what I want you to do here is write exactly what I write in this very first spot. I'm imagining the part in the story where Stanley goes for the class photo. All right. Go ahead and make sure you have that copied down. If you need to pause, if you need to rewind, whatever you need to do to get that copied. Stanley, S-T-A-N-L-E-Y, goes, G-O-E-S, for, F-O-R, the, T-H-E, class, C-L-A-S-S, photo, P-H-O-T-O. So I'm imagining the part in the story where Stanley goes for the class photo is happening. I'm imagining it looks like blank. 3 things to describe this are blank, blank, and blank. So I'm imagining it looks silly or funny, right? Because they all have crazy hair. So here's where you put the one word that describes what it looks like. A lot of you are trying to put it down here on these examples. This is where you would describe like it as a whole. Down here is where you're telling me what you would see that lets you know it's silly or funny. What are some things that you see in this instance that make it silly and that make it funny? So I saw in the picture, someone had a trash can on their head. That's pretty silly. So I would write that down. Kid with trash can on his head. So do you see? I'm just explaining what I see that makes me think it's funny. You can tell me something's funny all day, but I need you to tell me what you see that lets you know something's funny, that lets you know somebody's happy. So these are the things that where you're explaining that part. You're just telling me what you see, just like Stanley made his mind movie where he saw people wearing bathrobe. He saw people wearing pajamas. He saw people wearing slippers in his brain. So that's what you're doing here. So go ahead and come up with these 2 down here on your own. And then you're going to come up with this one on your own. I think this part looks like this because, so what do you know about Crazy Hair Day? You think about your own past when you've had Crazy Hair Day. What are some crazy things that people do with their hair on Crazy Hair Day? What, have you seen anything like this in a movie? Have you seen it in the story? Like, explain to me why you think it looks like this. What makes you think it looks funny? What makes you think there would be a kid with a trash can on his head? Okay, then we're ready to go to the back. For summarize, readers think about the most important parts of a book. In your own words, give me a summary of the story you just listened to. The story blank, title of the story. So that tells me that the title goes in this first blank, Crazy Hair Day. Talks about blank, the characters. Oh, so Stanley, Larry, and their class, right? Those are the main characters. That goes there because characters tells me to put that in that box. Then it says in the beginning of the story, blank. In the middle of the story, blank. And at the end of the story, blank. So you're filling in beginning, middle, end. What was the most important thing at the beginning? Well, Stanley was excited for Crazy Hair Day. So I went ahead and wrote that down. Stanley was excited for Crazy Hair Day at school. If you'll notice, I did not capitalize it here because here it's not a title. So we only capitalize it when it's the title of the book. Here it's just talking about a Crazy Hair Day and we don't need to capitalize it. So Stanley was excited for Crazy Hair Day at school at the beginning. Then in the middle, what happened? Was there a problem? Did something happen that made everybody worried or upset? And at the end, how did they solve that problem? How did they fix it and make everything better? What happened there? Then we're on to number 7. I am noticing several people aren't doing this one. Guys, if you don't post this, you are going to miss this question. You're going to get it wrong. I go and check and read everybody's posts, and I usually comment on them to like ask you a question or to tell you if you're on the right track. So please, please, please make sure that you're doing this question when you finish with all the other ones. This is something you're being graded on. So this is called the blog question. You're going to open up Google Classroom for your color, and you start a new post. It's like if you go straight to stream and you scroll down to where all the posts are, it'll say write something. And you just click that and then you can type in that box. And you're just gonna either pick to do making connections or story continued. If you choose to do making connections, you're going to think about how this book is similar to your own life, and you're going to connect it. You're going to say, making connections to Bad Hair Day. You'll say, something that happened in the book reminds me of, so you'll say, specific thing that happened in the book. You'll tell me what happened in the book. Reminds me of specific thing that happened in my life, in a movie, in another book. You tell me what it is, and that's how they connect. You don't just say, this reminds me of my sister. Okay, that's great. Tell me why. Tell me what part reminds you of your sister. I need more information. You need to make the connection, because I'm not you. I can't read your mind. I need you to tell me what your connection is. So if you choose that one, that's what you're doing. If you don't have a connection, or you don't like this one, you could go ahead and do story continued. Readers think about what might happen next if the book were to keep going. So at the end of the book, they all had crazy hair and they were going to take a class picture together. What do you think might happen next if they kept going? What do you think might happen on the real Crazy Hair Day? What do you think their parents would do if their school picture was crazy hair? You're just going to keep going with the story. So you would say, Bad Hair Day continued, and you would say something that might happen next is blah, 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 blah. I think this because blah, 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 blah. I know what happens if I make a mistake if I make a bad picture, my mom gets upset, right? So you come up with something based on your own knowledge and your own brain, and based off of what happened in the story. So you do not have to do both of these. You just pick one and then you type it up on Google Classroom. If you are feeling stuck, you can raise your hand and we can help you with this, but please do not skip it, because I would hate for you to miss it just because you didn't try. So after you finish this, go ahead and put your name on it and turn it in. Then you can work on any word work for this week. I think this week we're doing 10, 11, and 12. And then if you finish that, you can do IXL or Lexia.